afternoon, everyone. I promise to try and not use the term BIM through this whole presentation, because I reckon you're probably pretty BIMmed out for the last few hours of the day.
You reckon, right?
Really? The idea being that what I want to talk about today is the concept of collaboration in its purest form, but then how that is applied in the type of projects that we work in. I work quite extensively in the manufacturing sector, and collaboration there is, I would say, probably about 10 to 15 years ahead of where it is in the construction area. Now, there's a lot of reasons behind that, and we'll talk about some of those now, but there's some very strong parallels between collaboration / PLM in manufacturing as there is in collaboration / BIM in the architectural, construction, and engineering spaces. But what I want to just do during this session is really give you an understanding of what we consider collaboration to be, because there are many terms. I've wandered around outside in the exhibition area. Pretty much every one of the vendors out there has got the word collaboration on there somewhere, because they're all trying to sell you what they perceive a collaboration tool is. But let's really look at what definition of collaboration actually is. And then why it's so difficult. Why is collaboration proving to be such a challenge in our industry to get people to work more closely together? Because really it's a natural form for us as human beings. And then we'll look at some things to consider on how to collaborate better. And we will be including in that technology, processes, and from my perspective, the thing that I'm most passionate about is the people aspect of how we bring people into collaboration and how their wants and needs need to be matched with the processes and the technology and the goals of what we're actually trying to achieve. So hopefully you'll find this a little bit different from what you probably spoke about today. There's very little technology in this, and hopefully it will start to get you thinking a little bit more about some things to consider about the people you're working with and not just the technology you're working with. So we look at what is collaboration. There are many technical definitions to collaboration. The one I actually prefer the most is from a book that I would recommend to anybody who is interested in the subject. It's called The Culture of Collaboration, Evan Rosen. And this idea that we're working together to create value in a shared world. But today the shared world is virtual and physical. The create value is important because in recent times, probably the last couple of thousand years, people have been not in a collaborative mode, they've been in a commercial, competitive world. For someone to win, someone has to lose. But that's a zero-sum game. If someone wins, someone loses. All that's moving value from one person to another. But for most of our evolution, we've been in a collaborative mode. We've been working in tribes. We've been working and evolved as we moved through our history to become more collaborative. When we came down from the trees and started working together, there's some interesting studies that say collaboration drove human evolution. And the reason for that being that the increasing protein that people could get via hunting bigger game together, collaborating in a tribe, made our brains grow. That's what actually evolved humans, was the increase. There's a spot in evolution you can see on the timeline where our evolution moved up rapidly, and it was coincided with an increase in the volume and the amount of protein that was available to people because they were hunting bigger game, working together. Now that's a little bit left field from BIM, but bear with me for a little bit. What we're trying to look at is when people started to collaborate better, there had to be a currency of exchange. There had to be a way of driving that collaboration. And to do that, not everybody went on the hunt, right? Not everybody went out there and killed the woolly mammoth. Some people stayed at home. Some people cooked the food. Some people made the spears. Some people looked after the children. Some people dealt with the hides of the animals. But they were all involved. They were part of the tribe, and they were rewarded for the work they were done by me, basically. And this whole concept of creating the tribe is one of the most critical aspects when you're working with individuals in a collaborative environment. As we said, over the last 2,000 years or so, as we've become more driven by commerce, we're actually now at a point where that culture of collaboration and come to the epitome of greed is good eventually almost drove that out of us. It drove us to say, I must win, and for me to win, someone else must lose. But that's changing. And it's changing as we build more value through collaboration. Because we've done some pretty amazing things. We've built some pretty amazing things way before Revit, way before MicroStation, way before BIM. We've done some pretty amazing things, and we've built some amazing things, and these things weren't just thrown together. The guys building Stonehenge didn't put an arch up and then go, that looks good. What if we did a whole circle of that? They had a plan, they had a drive, they had a strategy to do that way before we had any process, way before we had any technology. So what did they have? They had people. But they had people who had a common goal and a common vision, either driven by a very charismatic or dramatic or dictatorial leader, or some religious fervour to build these things. But they were aligned, and they knew what they were going to get from delivering what they wanted to deliver. And this is something that I see very firmly in the roots of manufacturing. When you look at when manufacturing moved from cottage industry to become more industrialised, and people talk about Henry Ford, who probably is one of the real leaders in driving the collaborative process with things like the production line. He actually was one of the most dictatorial people you could ever wish to meet. I mean, two statements of Henry Ford: you could have any colour as long as it's black, when you were buying a car. And he said, if my customers wanted, if I asked what my customers wanted, I'd have built a faster horse. Massively dictatorial. I know where I'm going, I know what's going to happen, I will drive this. And in manufacturing, that has been one of the key factors that's helped manufacturing drive through. You look at the big OEM suppliers, many of them drive culture through their supply chain. You will use this, you will do this, you will operate this way. And things like PLM have also helped drive that through become the process that supports that drive. Now that's not always as applicable in the industries that you all work in. But it's some area that we have to try and find. We can't all be the benevolent dictator, but we can look to set vision, we can look to set goals, and that's how we'll talk about that in a moment. So why? We've done great things in the past, we've collaborated well in the past, we now have more technology, more process than we've ever had, yet we still don't seem to be able to deliver the same way as we could back then. Well, the problem is, we think we can solve everything with technology. We think we can solve everything with process, whereas actually the key to the whole element is the culture. You cannot, I actually did this as a roadshow around the Eastern Seaboard a couple of weeks ago, and one of the key phrases I got, one of the customers that I spoke to came up and gave me this one and said, collaboration cannot be deployed, it has to be lived. It has to be part of, embraced and be part of the culture. You can't just put in SharePoint and go, that's it, we'll all collaborate now because we've got a collaboration tool. Everybody in the organisation has to live this culture of working together. And to do that, they have to know what's in it for them. And we'll talk a little bit about the emotional side of it in a moment. Legal agreements, legal frameworks do help, but they also hinder. The great thing about legal agreements is they stop you doing things you shouldn't do. They also sometimes stop you doing things you want to do, which sometimes is good but also bad. But they also then creates this framework that can both inhibit and encourage collaboration. And we can talk a little bit about that as well. Because really, if we were all logical, it would be easy. I'm really going out on a limb now, but in Star Trek 2, the Wrath of Khan, go with it, go on, I know you want to. Spock puts himself in the nuclear reactor, he gives up his life to save everybody on the ship, and he utters the immortal line, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Ultimate sacrifice, effectively collaboration, but ultimately sacrifice. Altruistic, I will do what is best for everybody else, we will achieve our goal, the mission is successful, I'm dead, bit of a downside, but the rest of it's all good. Great, logical, practical, efficient, effective, altruistic, amazing. If you're a Vulcan, yes. If you're a human, no. Totally unrealistic. What's realistic is that, courtesy of my 4-year-old. Emotional, impulsive, driven by self-interest, unable to sacrifice, unable to give up control, unable to say, I will trust somebody else in the process to deliver this. The problem is, we deploy software and processes and think everybody's a Vulcan. And we forget they're not human beings with their own needs and their own drivers. Who's ever heard of the prisoner's dilemma? It's an interesting facet where you put two people in separate rooms and you tell them you've done a crime, and you tell them, if you admit to it, we'll let you go and say your mate did it, and he'll go to jail for a long time. So you sit there and people think, well, that's good. If I admit to it and say we did it, I'll get off scot-free and he'll go to jail. However, if both people admit to it, if he admits to it too, then you're both in trouble. So the actual collaborative answer to the prisoner's dilemma is also for both people to say nothing. Because then no one can really be convicted because no one knows what really went on. However, self-interest always pretty much overrides, and people 9 times out of 10 playing prisoner's dilemma take the plea bargain. They say, yeah, we did do it, but it was him. Please let me off. And they both end up going to prison. Because self-interest is a very reliable judgment of what people will do. Not team interest, not collaboration, self-interest. There's another interesting exercise called the ultimatum game. And in the ultimatum game, 2 people are put in separate rooms. One person is given $100 and they're asked to make a bargain with the person in the other room. And they can offer them a percentage of the $100 as a gift. The person in the other room then decides, are they willing to accept the percentage? If they accept, they each get their share of the $100. If they do not accept, no one gets any money and they go home with nothing. Now logic would dictate, if you're the person in the second room, any money you get offered is better than nothing. So if the person offers you $1 and they keep in the 99, you should accept because you're $1 better off. Every single time this game is run, that's logic. What normally happens is unless people are offered roughly 50-50, they reject. Because there's a sense of fairness, a sense of equality. Because they go, well, hang on a minute, I'm only getting 99, I'm only getting $1. No, he's not getting 99, screw that. And they reject the game. The interesting thing is with this game, is most of the time in Western culture, the people actually making the offer know that. And if you sit in a Western culture, most people will offer around 50%. They'll offer a fair split. And that it will work more times than it not. In other cultures, it's not the same. So again, when you're working with people different, you've got to also look at the idea of fairness and self-interest, but also look at the cultures of the people you're working with. Because in some culture, people will say, $5 is better than nothing, I'll take 5, I don't care, that guy's getting 95, I'm getting $5. But in Western culture, we seem to have this idea, no, I'm not taking $5, I want a lot more than that, why should he get 95? Again, these are all things that go into how you build, manage and create a team and how they collaborate, because that's a collaboration game, 2 people working together to get some money. But because the collaboration wasn't built properly, guess what? No one got any money. I don't know if any of you have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. This is a very detailed model, but what you really need to know about this is things that keep you alive are at the bottom. All the core values down here, like food and water and shelter and money, are at the bottom of the pyramid. All the cool stuff, all the innovative, all the creative, all the special creativity, spontaneity sit at the top of this. Now, to get people to the top, there's one absolute guaranteed thing you need to do. And that is to include them in the process, to make them feel that they are part of something that needs to be achieved. If you just throw money and food and water at people and don't include them, they will be down here. If you start to build a process where they understand the vision, they understand their role in the process, they understand what it is that they will achieve and they will deliver for the overall, then you start to move them up the stack, they feel included, they achieve more, they deliver more, they're more productive. And to do that, you need to start to understand that people just don't have intelligence based on knowledge. People have emotional intelligence. And there is a way of actually measuring people's IQ, but also measuring people's EI. We start looking at emotional intelligence. Now, I'm sure many organisations do not consider this when they're putting together project teams. They should. They massively should. But many don't. Is that person, do they have the right Revit skills? Do they have the right BIM skills? Do they have the right project management skills? But will they work well as a group, as a team? It's like building out. So there are tools to help us do this, but we tend to not do it. We actually do it subconsciously. We all work in businesses, and we all know there's teams that go, I'll work with Dave on this project, because you know what, I like Dave. I get on with Dave. Me and Dave, we like that. We understand each other, me and Dave, that's great. It's that. They're doing that, but you're doing it subconsciously. It's great until Dave's not available, he's on a different project, then who do you work with? So we do it, but we don't always do it explicitly. So, yes, there are issues with it, and there are things we can do. The important thing is we're not just standing up and saying, oh, it's horrible, we can't do collaboration. There's a lot of things we can do with collaboration. Then the key part really revolves around the vision, the final deliverable. What is it that we're actually working towards? Do we have a common goal? Do we have a vision? Do we know what it is? And do we know what our part is in that? Because at the end of the day, we're just trying to execute things right. We're just trying to make sure that the right people are doing the right tasks with the right data, the right level of authority, at the right time for the right cost. If you can get those 6 things right, then pretty much everything's going to flow pretty well. But it's not always as easy as saying that. We do rely on technology, we rely on processes, we rely on methodology, and we massively rely on people and culture. So when we're looking at technology, there are some core things, and I'm not here to recommend one technology over the other. You'll do that, you'll find the right solution for you guys. But I am recommending that whatever technology solutions you look at, these are the type of things you need to have embedded in them. Collaboration built in the system. So the ability to collaborate built in. Things like supply chain. And building a supply chain in where people are connected, they can communicate together, they have a common term of reference. And you know, the classic version of that is the production line. That's no more than an in-house supply chain as you move things through the production line. But also things of collaboration in the system mean things like, and there's an interesting thing that's happened with collaboration around things like Twitter. Hashtags. Hashtags are social collaboration. Right? There is no government body, there's no single agency that says when an incident happens, this is the hashtag for this incident. No one does it. You know who does it? We all do it. Society does it. Somebody tags on to something and all of a sudden it's out there. If you want to know anything, any possible theory about what happened to MH370, just do hashtag MX370 in Twitter and they'll all be there. Every possible theory, which is a good thing and a bad thing. Because from a data perspective, yes, there's all your data, but it's completely unvalidated. It's completely no integrity to it. Yes, it may have been abducted by aliens, but I'm pretty much guessing it wasn't. But that's one of the things, you come up with hashtag MX370, but hashtagging is social collaboration. It's the way that society has decided it wants to build a collaboration engine. And Twitter's basically exploiting that to create social groups using hashtagging. So I'm not saying that your BIM solution or whatever should use hashtags, but it should have some inbuilt form to be able to create collaborative environments. It should have a single source of integral truth. This does not mean a single database. Federated models are fine, but it needs to have one place you go and find the information from. And it's got to be trustworthy information. You've got to know you're working with the latest, the greatest, the authorised, the approved. If you're not, you are in big, big trouble. The risks are massive. It has to now have the appropriate communications vehicles. People work in different ways. Your tool needs to be able to work in the ways that your people work. Whether that's mobile, whether that's cloud, it doesn't matter. It needs all of these different technologies built in. And it becomes a foundation, and I have this term I've sort of created called the collaboration island, a point where everyone can work safely, where data can be placed, and people can work safely without access to the rest of your data. You do not want to be opening your doors to all and sundry to get to your IP, because that's who you are, that's your unique differentiator. But there are certain bits of your IP you do want people to have access to, so you place it in the collaboration island, so the relevant people could all come in. Rather than sharing it with you, and you, and you, and you, and you move it around into a collaboration island. Because the key is with technology, it's very important, but it's the end point, not the start point. As Steve Jobs said, you start with the experience, then work back to the technology. Start with what you're trying to achieve, which is collaboration, then work back to the technology that can provide it, not the other way around. You still need processes, you still need methodologies, you need that control. Published roles and responsibilities, understand what your role is, but also what everyone else's role is. So you know when there's a problem where to go. You also, if you know what someone else's responsibility and role is, you'll know how they'll react when something goes wrong. Because it will, or something changes, because it will. And you know what their responsibility, what they're responsible for delivering, you'll know how it impacts them, you'll know how they'll react, you'll be able to work with them in a better way. Yes, you need workflows. BIM, PLM, ERP, workflows, they are critical to helping you be more efficient, but they are not the only answer. The great thing about those workflows is they control structure. So it stops people going off. We've all worked in projects where 4 or 5 people go off in the corner and go, I know we're doing this, but I actually want to do it like this. Let's find our own little way. And we create this little skunk works project, which is fine, but you don't want to do it on live data. But you still want to capture that. So you don't want a structure which stops creativity. You need a structure that controls it, channels it, and creates what I call a dream catcher to create that. Because on the next project, that may actually be the right way to do it. But you never scope this project to do it in that way. So you need to be able to channel the creativity through structure. But don't kill it, channel it. But this is the key. The people. Understand the emotional intelligence of the people you're working with. The right people with the right attitude on the right projects. Without that, I'm not saying you won't be successful, but you will struggle to be successful. You will be fighting against, you'll be swimming against the current instead of with the current. Create the tribe. Create that shared vision, that clear value to the project. I need you working on this project. I need you doing this because this is the value you provide. What you do enables all these other guys to do their job. What you do enables us to work, be faster, be more efficient, to deliver better quality to our customer. Create that vision and tribe. And create the currency of exchange. We talked about very early on with the tribes and handing out meat for the people who made the spears. We're not quite going to do that. Maybe, maybe not. But recognition and reward. Some people are not driven by money. A lot of people are, but some people are driven also by recognition, reward. Find the right currency of exchange for your people. Consider what drives them, what motivates them, and that will get the most out of them. And try and turn self-interest to team interest. We just finished the World Cup. Germany won the World Cup, Soccer World Cup. And being English, saying soccer really hurts, right? But I did say it, Soccer World Cup. When the World Cup, before the World Cup started, every piece of advertising literature that was going out there was about the superstars. Ronaldo, Messi, Neymar. There wasn't a single German on it. I never saw a 20-foot high poster of a German player. I saw lots of Ronaldo, I saw lots of Neymar, I saw lots of Messi. That's the Schweinsteiger or any of the Germans. Won the World Cup. Because in their situation, team interest overrode self-interest. You will never eradicate self-interest. It will always be at the core of every human being. But for a time, you can get people to focus on team interest over self-interest. And if you could do that, those two things, you're well on your way to providing better collaboration experience across all your projects. And that's all I want to say.